The bridge of the Vallani flagship Gentle Dawn shook again as another plasma bolt struck their failing shields. Commander Hana gripped her command chair, watching the tactical display with growing despair. Red markers surrounded them on all sides. 67 Ravak warships against her remaining 12 vessels. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Shield strength at 30%. Reported her tactical officer, his voice steady despite the hopeless situation. The Vallani had always prided themselves on their calm nature, even in the face of extinction. Hana looked at the view screen showing new serenity below them. The last free world of the Vallani Republic. 6 billion souls who had never hurt anyone, who had spent centuries building gardens and art galleries instead of weapons. Now they would all die because the Ravak Empire wanted their fertile worlds. Commander, incoming transmission from the Ravak flagship, her communications officer announced. Put it through. The screen filled with the scarred face of Ravak Admiral Sektar. His species looked like walking nightmares, tall, covered in dark scales, with teeth designed for tearing flesh. Behind him, Hana could see other Ravak officers, celebrating their coming victory. Vallani fools, Sektar growled. Your pathetic resistance ends now. Surrender, and we will make your deaths quick. Fight, and we will make examples of your civilians. Hana had seen what Ravak examples looked like. Entire cities turned to ash. Families separated and enslaved. Children taken from their parents and raised as Ravak soldiers. The reports from fallen worlds haunted her dreams. We will never surrender, she said quietly. Sektar laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. Then watch your precious world burn. The transmission cut off. Almost immediately, the Ravak fleet began moving into bombardment formation. They would destroy the orbital defenses first, then rain fire on the planet below. Standard Ravak tactics. Efficient and merciless. All ships prepare for final engagement, Hana ordered. Her captains acknowledged the command. They all knew this was the end. The Vallani military had never been strong. They were explorers and scientists, not warriors. But they would fight to protect their people, even if it meant nothing. As the enemy ships closed in, Hana remembered something her grandfather had told her long ago. Stories from the outer rim, whispers of species so dangerous that even the Ravak avoided their space. Tales of worlds where life itself was a constant battle, where creatures evolved to be perfect killing machines. The galaxy called them Deathworlders. Most civilized species thought they were myths, scary stories to keep children from wandering too far into unknown space. But Hana's grandfather had been an explorer. He claimed to have seen evidence of these nightmare worlds on the very edge of known space. If Deathworlders really exist, he had said, they would be the only thing in the galaxy that could make predators like the Ravak afraid. The ship shook again, harder this time. 2 of her escorts exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The BI Ravak were taking their time, enjoying the hunt. They wanted the Vallani to suffer before they died. Hana made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Open all communication channels, she ordered. Emergency broadcast on every frequency. We can reach. Her communications officer looked puzzled, but obeyed. Channels open, Commander. Hana took a deep breath. This would probably be her last act as a free being. This is Commander Hana of the Vallani Republic. We are under attack by the Ravak Empire. Our worlds are burning. Our people are dying. If anyone can hear this message, if anyone has the power to stop these monsters, please help us. The Ravak have killed billions. They will not stop until every peaceful species in the galaxy serves them or lies dead. She paused, watching another of her ships die in fire and twisted metal. We have tried to resist. We have tried to fight. But we are not warriors. We do not know how to kill. The Ravak do nothing but kill. They are spreading across the galaxy like a plague. and no one can stop them. The bridge fell silent except for the sounds of battle outside. Her crew watched her with sad understanding. This was not a call for help. This was a final testimony, a record for future archaeologists to find in the wreckage. If there are Deathworlders out there, Hana continued, if the stories are true, then you are our only hope. The galaxy needs something stronger than the Ravak, something that can teach them what it means to be afraid. The transmission ended. Around them, the battle continued its predictable course. The remaining Villani ships fought bravely, but courage, without strength, was just another word for suicide. Far away, in a small monitoring station at the edge of human space, Lieutenant June was finishing his night shift when his equipment picked up the broadcast. At first, he thought it was just another signal from the Galactic Communication Network. Space was full of chatter from thousands of different species, but something in the voice made him listen more carefully. The translator systems worked overtime, converting the alien words into Korean. As the message played, June's expression grew darker. He had studied military history at the academy. He knew what genocide looked like. His own people had faced extinction more than once in their bloody past. The desperation in the alien commander's voice was something he recognized. June immediately forwarded the message to his superior officer, along with his own analysis. The signal had come from somewhere in the Andromeda Communication Network, at least 6 months of travel time away, but the mention of Deathworlders made him think the message might be meant for Earth. The message traveled up the chain of command faster than anyone expected. Within hours, it reached Admiral Kang at the headquarters of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. The Admiral was a veteran of the Titan Wars and the Asteroid Belt conflicts. He had spent 40 years learning how to fight in the darkness between stars. When Niobri, he read the transcript. Something cold and hard settled in his chest. He had seen what happened when strong species preyed on the weak. Earth's own history was full of such darkness, but humanity had learned to fight back against bullies. The emergency session of the Terran Council lasted exactly 17 minutes. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Kang returned to his flagship and gave the order that would introduce humanity to the galaxy. All ships, prepare for immediate departure. We have a distress call to answer. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet began moving toward the edge of human space, their destination a small world called New Serenity where someone had asked Deathworlders for help. They were about to get exactly what they asked for. The Villani sensor operator stared at his readings in confusion. Something was wrong with the equipment. It had to be. The energy signatures appearing at the edge of the New Serenity system made no sense. "Commander Hana," he called out, his voice uncertain. "I'm detecting incoming ships, but these readings are impossible." Hana looked up from the damage reports she had been reviewing. 3 days had passed since her desperate broadcast. 3 days of hiding in the asteroid belt while Ravak ships hunted them. They had lost 2 more vessels to patrol sweeps. Only 7 ships remained of her once proud fleet. "What kind of impossible?" she asked. "The ships are using some kind of jump drive I've never seen before. The energy patterns are completely foreign. And, Commander, there are 12 of them." Hana felt her heart sink. 12 ships meant another Ravak task force, probably coming to finish what Admiral Sektar had started. The main Ravak fleet was busy bombarding the northern continent of New Serenity, turning cities into glass. These new arrivals would complete the extermination. "Put the sensor data on the main screen," she ordered. The tactical display showed 12 contacts emerging from hyperspace, but as the sensors got a better look at the new arrivals, Hana realized something was different. These ships were not Ravak designs. They were angular and brutal-looking, covered in armor plates and weapon mounts. They moved with a precision that spoke of advanced technology and experienced crews. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Hana of the Villani Republic," she transmitted on open channels. "Please identify yourselves." The response came almost immediately, but in a language the translation systems had never encountered. The computer worked for several seconds before producing a result. Villani vessel, this is Captain Minho of the Terran naval ship Indomitable. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Hana blinked. Terran? She had never heard of that species. And the voice coming through the translator was calm and controlled, nothing like the savage roar she had expected from Deathworlders. Captain Minho, she replied carefully, we appreciate your response, but you should know that the enemy force attacking this system is very large and very dangerous. 60+ warships with advanced weapons. I would not want your people to die because of our hopeless situation. There was a pause. Then Captain Minho spoke again, and Hana thought she heard something like amusement in his voice. Commander, we've come a long way to answer your call. Would it be possible to meet in person? My admiral would like to speak with you about the enemy you're facing. An hour later, Hana found herself aboard the human flagship. The experience was surreal. The corridors were functional and clean, but there was something different about them. The lighting was harsher than Villani ships used. The walls were thicker. Everything was built like it expected to be shot at. Captain Minho met her at the airlock. He was shorter than she had expected, with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a uniform that was simple but clearly military. Behind him stood other humans, all watching her with polite interest. Welcome aboard the Indomitable, Captain Minho said. Admiral Kang is waiting in the briefing room. Admiral Kang was an older human with graying hair and scars on his hands. He stood when Hana entered, offering a slight bow that seemed respectful rather than submissive. Commander Hana, he said, thank you for trusting us. I know this must be difficult. Hana looked around the briefing room. The walls were covered with star charts and tactical displays. Everything spoke of careful planning and professional competence. These beings took warfare seriously. Admiral, I must ask, she said, are you really Deathworlders? Several of the humans exchanged glances. Admiral Kang nodded slowly. Our planet is called Earth, he said. It has tried to kill us since we first developed intelligence. Diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, predators that hunt in packs. We learned to fight, because the alternative was extinction. Engineer Yuna, a young woman with quick eyes, leaned forward. Commander, could you tell us about these Ravok? Their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses? For the next 2 hours, Hana briefed the humans on everything she knew about their enemy. The Ravok Empire had conquered 17 species over the past century. Their technology was based on plasma weapons and energy shields. They preferred overwhelming force to clever tactics. The humans listened with an intensity that made Hana uncomfortable. They asked detailed questions about Ravok ship configurations, weapon ranges, and battle formations. Tactical Officer Tyke took careful notes about enemy communication protocols and command structures. They always attack in the same pattern, Hana explained. Overwhelm the defenders with superior numbers, then bombard the planet until all resistance ends. They don't believe in subtlety or strategy, just raw power. Admiral Kang nodded thoughtfully. And they've never lost a major battle? Never. They conquered the Hector systems in 6 months. The Villani Federation lasted only 3 weeks. We've held out for 2 years, but only because we kept retreating. Every time we tried to make a stand, they crushed us. The briefing was interrupted by proximity alarms. The ship's communication system crackled to life. Admiral, this is the bridge. We have 30 Ravok ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're forming up for an attack run on the planet. Hana felt despair wash over her. This is it, she said quietly. The final assault. They've come to finish what they started. She expected the humans to begin planning their escape. Any reasonable species would run from those odds. 30 Ravok warships against 12 unknown vessels. It was not even a fair fight. Instead, Admiral Kang stood up and straightened his uniform. All ships, this is Admiral Kang, he announced over the fleet communication channel. Unknown hostile force has entered the system and appears to be targeting civilian populations. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show them why Earth breeds warriors. Hana stared at him in shock. Admiral, you can't mean to fight them. Your ships will be destroyed. Admiral Kang looked at her with eyes that had seen too many wars. Commander, we came here to help. That's what we're going to do. As the human fleet moved to intercept the Ravak attack force, Hana realized she was about to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. For the first time in over a century, someone was going to fight the Ravak Empire as equals. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were not running away. Captain Minho returned to his ship and took his position on the bridge. Around him, his crew prepared for battle with calm efficiency. They had trained for this their entire careers. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the Ravak ships are maintaining standard formation. They don't seem to consider us a serious threat. Captain Minho smiled grimly. They're about to learn why that's a mistake. The Battle of New Serenity was about to begin. The Ravak Admiral Sektar studied the tactical display with growing irritation. 12 unknown ships had appeared in the system, and they were moving to intercept his attack formation. It was either supreme arrogance or complete stupidity. Unknown vessels, he transmitted. You are interfering with Ravak military operations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came in accented but clear Ravak standard language. Ravak fleet, this is Admiral Kang of the Terran Expeditionary Force. You will cease all hostile actions against civilian targets and withdraw from this system. Sektar laughed so hard, his subordinates stepped back nervously. Terran, I have never heard of this pathetic species. Observe how we deal with fools who dare to challenge the Ravak Empire. He ordered his lead squadron to destroy the alien ships quickly. 24 Ravak cruisers accelerated toward the human formation, plasma, cannons charging for maximum effect. Standard doctrine called for overwhelming firepower at close range. It had never failed. The humans did something unexpected. Instead of forming a defensive line or attempting to flee, they scattered in 12 different directions. The Ravak formation found itself chasing targets that moved with impossible precision through the asteroid field. Captain Minho's destroyer, the Indomitable, dove toward the largest asteroid cluster at full acceleration. His navigation officer looked nervous as they approached what seemed like certain collision. Captain, we're going to hit that asteroid field at this speed, she warned. Trust the computer, Minho replied calmly, and trust our engines. The Indomitable threaded through gaps between asteroids that were barely wider than the ship itself. Behind them, 6 Ravak cruisers tried to follow, but had to slow down to avoid collisions. The humans used the asteroids as cover, appearing and disappearing, like ghosts. When the Ravak ships finally cleared the field, they found the human destroyer waiting for them. But it was not alone. 2 other human ships had used different routes through the asteroids to achieve perfect flanking positions. All ships, synchronized strike, Captain Minho ordered. The 3 human vessels opened fire simultaneously. Their weapons were different from anything the Ravak had seen before. Instead of plasma bolts, they fired solid projectiles at tremendous velocity. The kinetic rounds tore through Ravak shields like paper. 2 cruisers exploded immediately. A third lost power and began drifting. The remaining 3 Ravak ships tried to retreat, but the humans pursued them with ruthless efficiency. Elsewhere in the battle, pilot Kyung led her fighter squadron against the Ravak flagship. Her ships were small and fast, designed for atmospheric combat on Earth's violent surface. In space, they moved like angry wasps. The Ravak point defense systems tried to track the human fighters, but they could not match the pilot's skill. Kyung had learned to fly in Earth's storm systems, dodging lightning and hurricane winds. Avoiding plasma bolts was almost relaxing by comparison. Dragon Squadron, attack pattern Alpha, she commanded. Target their shield generators. The human fighters dove toward the massive Ravak flagship in a coordinated spiral pattern. Each pilot fired at precise intervals, overloading specific sections of the enemy shields. When gaps appeared in the defensive barrier, they struck the vulnerable systems underneath. Admiral Sektar watched in growing horror as his flagship's shields collapsed section by section. "What are these creatures?" he demanded. "How do they fight with such precision?" His tactical officer could only stare at the displays. "Sir, they're using the debris from our destroyed ships as weapons. One of their vessels just accelerated. A piece of wreckage directly into our port engine cluster." It was true. The humans had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. They used gravitational fields to redirect debris, creating kinetic projectiles that struck without warning. They hid behind the hulks of destroyed ships, then emerged to strike at unexpected angles. But the most terrifying thing was their coordination. The 12 human ships fought as a single organism, each one supporting the others in perfect harmony. When Ravak forces concentrated on one target, the others would appear from impossible directions to provide support. Commander Hana watched the battle from the bridge of the Gentle Dawn, unable to believe what she was seeing. In 90 minutes of combat, the humans had destroyed 18 Ravak ships and crippled 6 more. The remainder of Sektar's force was trying to flee the system. "How are they doing this?" her tactical officer asked in amazement. Before Hana could answer, Captain Minho's voice came over the communication channel. "Commander Hana, we're pursuing the remaining enemy ships. Please coordinate with our search and rescue teams for any survivors." Survivors. The humans were worried about Ravak's survivors after winning an impossible victory. It was the most alien thing Hana had witnessed yet. Admiral Sektar's flagship was the last to retreat. As it limped toward the hyperspace jump point, its communication systems transmitted a desperate message to Ravak High Command. "Emergency priority alert," Sektar reported, his voice shaking with fear. "Unknown Deathworlder species has appeared in the new Serenity system. Recommend immediate evacuation of all forces from this sector. These creatures fight like demons. They turned our own weapons against us. They moved through space like it was their natural element." The transmission cut off as the flagship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of half the Ravak strike force. Admiral Kang contacted Commander Hana an hour after the battle ended. "Commander, our damage. Assessment teams report that the Ravak bombardment caused significant civilian casualties on New Serenity. We have medical supplies and personnel if your people need assistance." Hana was still trying to process what had happened. The Ravak Empire had not lost a major battle in over a century. Now a small human fleet had routed them completely. "Admiral," she said slowly, "how did you do that? Your ships are outnumbered and Ravak technology is supposed to be among the most advanced in the galaxy." Admiral Kang was quiet for a moment. "Commander, where we come from, everything tries to kill you. The weather, the animals, the planet itself. We learn to fight not because we enjoy violence, but because the alternative is death. We became very good at surviving." He paused, then continued. "But more importantly, we learn to work together. On Earth, the creatures that hunt in packs are the most dangerous. Humans are pack hunters, Commander. We're stronger together than we are alone." As human rescue ships began arriving to help with civilian evacuation, Hana realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. For the first time since the Ravak Empire began its expansion, they had met an opponent they could not defeat. But Admiral Kang was not finished. "Commander, we didn't come here just to win one battle. We came to help your people survive. That means we need to take the fight to the Ravak before they can regroup and strike again." Hana felt hope, stirring in her chest for the first time in years. "What are you proposing?" "We're going to liberate your worlds," Admiral Kang said simply. "All of them. And we're going to teach the Ravak Empire what happens when Deathworlders go to war." in the depths of space, human reinforcements were already moving toward Volani territory. The Third Expeditionary Fleet was coming, and they brought with them centuries of experience in the art of warfare. The Ravak Empire was about to learn that some prey fights back. The arrival of the main human fleet 3 days later was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 200 ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their angular hulls gleaming with fresh armor plating. At their head rode the massive Dreadnought Prometheus, flagship of Admiral Dong. Commander Hana watched from the bridge of her rebuilt command ship as the human armada took position around New Serenity. The sight filled her with something she had almost forgotten how to feel: hope. Volani Command, this is Admiral Dong of the Terran Third Expeditionary Fleet, came the transmission. We're here to finish what Admiral Kang started. Within hours, the human commanders had established a joint headquarters on New Serenity's largest orbital station. The planning session that followed would become legend among military historians throughout the galaxy. Admiral Dong spread a holographic map of Volani space across the conference table. Red markers showed Ravak-occupied worlds, while blue indicated territories still under siege. The ratio was devastating: 67 worlds under enemy control, only 5 still free. The Ravak strategy is simple, explained Colonel Yunji, commander of the Human Marine Expeditionary Force. They take the most valuable worlds first, strip them of resources, then use those resources to attack the next target. Classic expansion doctrine. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and scars on her hands that spoke of personal combat experience. Her Marines had fought in the Titan Uprising and the Asteroid Belt conflicts. They knew how to take ground from enemies who didn't want to give it up. What we're going to do, continued Admiral Dong, is reverse that process. We'll liberate their newest conquests first, cutting off their supply lines. Then we work our way back to their core territories. Commander Hana studied the tactical display with growing amazement. Admiral, that would require coordinated assaults on 17 different star systems. The logistics alone are manageable, interrupted Major Sunho, the Marine Ground Combat Specialist. We've fought campaigns across multiple star systems before. The key is matching the right force to the right target. He highlighted different worlds on the map as he spoke. Garden worlds with minimal defenses get precision strikes by special operations teams. Fortress worlds get the full combined fleet assault. Industrial centers get targeted raids to destroy infrastructure while preserving civilian populations. For the next 6 hours, the human commanders outlined a campaign strategy that took Hana's breath away. They had studied every report, analyzed every piece of intelligence about Ravak tactics and technology. More importantly, they had identified weaknesses that no one else had seen. The Ravak Empire has never faced guerrilla warfare, explained Captain Insuk, commander of the Stealth Destroyer Squadron. They're used to fighting conventional battles against civilized opponents. They don't know how to deal with enemies who refuse to fight fair. The liberation began with Verdania Prime, a mining world that had fallen to the Ravak 6 months earlier. The planet's population of 2 billion had been enslaved to work the deep mineral extraction facilities. Ravak overseers used brutal methods to maintain discipline among the workers. Major Sunho's Marines approached the planet using a technique they called ghost insertion. Instead of landing in obvious locations, they used small stealth craft to infiltrate the underground tunnel systems that connected the mining complexes. The Ravak garrison never knew what hit them. One moment they were secure in their fortress bunkers, the next they were fighting human soldiers who appeared from maintenance shafts and supply tunnels. The Marines had trained for urban warfare in Earth's megacities, where battles often moved through sewers and subway systems. Contact front 2nd level, reported Sergeant Day over the tactical network. His squad had just engaged a Ravak patrol in the main processing center. Enemy forces are confused and disorganized. They don't know how we got behind their perimeter, The one. Liberation of Verdania Prime took 18 hours. When it was over, the entire Ravak garrison was either dead or captured, and 2 billion Volani workers were free. The humans had accomplished this with minimal civilian casualties and without damaging the mining infrastructure. But the real shock came when the human fleet moved to its next target. Instead of the months of preparation the Ravak expected, the humans struck at Kepler Station only 2 days later. This time, they used a completely different approach. Captain Insuk led his stealth squadron in a technique they called shadow dancing. The human ships used sensor-dampening technology to hide in the electromagnetic noise around the system's star. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking at Ravak supply convoys and communication relays. Unknown contacts bearing 27 Mark IV reported a panicked Ravak sensor operator. "They're gone." "Wait, new contacts bearing 81 Mark VII. I can't get a lock on them." The psychological effect was devastating. Ravak commanders found themselves jumping at shadows, seeing human ships that might not even be there. Their formation discipline broke down as captains made independent decisions to avoid phantom threats. When the main human fleet finally revealed itself, the Ravak forces were already demoralized and scattered. The battle lasted 4 hours and ended with the complete collapse of Ravak resistance in the system. The turning point came at the Battle of Crimson Nebula, where the Ravak had established their regional command center. This was a fortress system with overlapping defense platforms and a garrison of 40 warships. It should have been impregnable. Captain Insuk's task force spent 3 days mapping the nebula's electromagnetic interference patterns. They discovered that certain areas created sensor blind spots where ships could hide completely from enemy detection. "The nebula is our ocean," Captain Insuk explained to his captains. "We're going to hunt like submarines." The human ships moved through the nebula like predatory fish, striking without warning and disappearing before the enemy could respond. They used the interference to mask their approach, emerging from the cosmic fog to deliver devastating attacks on critical targets. Ravak Admiral Thekmor watched his command center's defenses crumble one by one. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our sensors show nothing, then suddenly they're firing on us from point-blank range." His tactical officer could only shake his head in bewilderment. "Sir, they're using the nebula itself as camouflage. Our detection systems can't track them through the interference." The regional command fell in 6 hours. With its destruction, Ravak coordination across 3 sectors collapsed completely. Local commanders found themselves cut off from central authority, forced to make decisions without strategic guidance. News of the human victories spread through Ravak space like wildfire. For the first time in their history, the Empire was facing systematic defeat. Fortress worlds that had never been threatened were falling to impossible attacks. The invincible Ravak war machine was being dismantled piece by piece. In the Imperial capital, Ravak High Command convened an emergency session. War Minister Graktul studied the reports with growing alarm. "These Deathworlders are not fighting like any enemy we've encountered," he told the assembled generals. "They strike from unexpected directions, use unconventional tactics, and seem to anticipate our responses before we make them." General Vexkar, veteran of 17 conquest campaigns, reviewed the tactical analysis with professional interest. They're adapting their methods to each target. No 2 attacks use the same approach. It's as if they're learning from our weaknesses, faster than we can compensate for them. The truth was worse than the Ravak realized. The humans were not just learning from each battle. They were systematically studying Ravak military doctrine and finding ways to counter it. Earth's military academies had spent centuries analyzing warfare in all its forms. Now that knowledge was being applied against an enemy who had never faced a technologically equal opponent. As human forces continued their advance through Volani space, Commander Hana found herself promoted to Admiral and given command of a joint Volani Human Task Force. Working alongside Admiral Kang, she began to understand why the humans were so effective. It's not just their technology, she explained to her officers. It's their approach to warfare. They study their enemies like scientists, then develop specific solutions for each problem. They don't just fight, they think about fighting. The K. Liberation continued with mechanical precision. Each victory made the next one easier as Ravak morale collapsed and coordination broke down. The empire that had conquered 17 species was being systematically destroyed by a force they had never imagined could exist. But the humans were not finished. They had identified the source of Ravak power, and they were preparing to strike at its heart. The emergency session of the Ravak High Command lasted for 3 days without break. In the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace, the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy struggled to understand how their invincible empire was being systematically destroyed. War Minister Graktul paced before the tactical displays, his scaled face twisted with frustration. 17 worlds lost in 6 weeks, he announced to the assembled generals. 17 worlds that we spent decades conquering, taken by these Deathworlders in less than 2 months. General Vexkar studied the holographic battlefield reports with professional concern. Each human victory showed the same pattern: impossible tactics, perfect coordination, and complete adaptation to local conditions. The humans fought differently on every world, as if they were playing 17 different games simultaneously. They're not just defeating our forces, Vexkar observed. They're studying us, learning our weaknesses, and exploiting them faster than we can adapt. I've reviewed the tactical recordings from Verdania Prime and Kepler Station. These creatures fight like they can read our minds. The truth was even more disturbing. Intelligence reports from the front lines described human soldiers who moved through Ravak strongholds like they belonged there. They knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. They anticipated Ravak responses before Ravak commanders made them. Perhaps, suggested Admiral Thockrell, we should consider negotiating with these humans. Offer them territory in exchange for ending their aggression. The suggestion was met with horrified silence. The Ravak Empire had never negotiated with anyone. They conquered or they destroyed. The concept of compromise was alien to their culture. Warlord Kresh, the architect of the Villani genocide, stood slowly from his position at the head of the table. He was massive even by Ravak standards, with battle scars covering his arms and ceremonial weapons hanging from his belt. His reputation for ruthless efficiency had made him the most feared general in the Empire. There will be no negotiation, he growled. These Deathworlders have made the mistake of thinking they can challenge the Ravak Empire. We will teach them the price of that arrogance. He activated the central holographic display, showing a detailed map of human space. The information had been gathered by long-range reconnaissance ships over the past month. Intelligence indicates that these humans come from a single star system called Sol, Kresh continued. Their homeworld is called Earth. Our analysts estimate a population of 10 billion, all concentrated on one planet. The implications were clear to everyone in the room. The entire human species was vulnerable to a single decisive strike. We will gather our core battle fleet, Kresh announced. Every ship we can spare from other sectors, 300 vessels, including our most advanced dreadnoughts. We will strike at their homeworld and break their will to fight. General Vexkar frowned. Warlord, our intelligence on their defensive capabilities is limited. Perhaps a more cautious approach. Kresh's roar cut him off. Caution is what allowed this problem to grow. We will crush their homeworld so thoroughly that the survivors will surrender immediately. Then we will hunt down every human ship in the galaxy and end this threat forever. Within days, the largest Ravak fleet in history began assembling at the staging area near the galactic core. Ships that had been scattered across the Empire for occupation duties returned to join the offensive. The massive dreadnought Worldbreaker, Kresh's personal flagship, took position at the head of the armada. The fleet that prepared to attack Earth represented the accumulated military might of 17 conquered civilizations. Energy weapons that could crack planets, shield generators that could deflect stellar radiation, and enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. But Kresh had made a fundamental error. He assumed that the humans were like every other species the Ravak had conquered, civilized beings who would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. He had no understanding of what Deathworlders were really like when their survival was threatened. The Human Intelligence Network detected Ravak fleet movements within hours of their beginning. Admiral Kang received the reports aboard his flagship near the newly liberated world of Harmony Station. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "long-range reconnaissance confirms a massive Ravak buildup near the galactic core. Conservative. Estimate puts it at over 300 ships, including super-heavy units we've never seen before." Admiral Kang studied the data with calm interest. "Destination?" "Trajectory analysis suggests they're heading for Sol System, sir. Estimated arrival time is 6 days." Admiral Kang nodded slowly. This was the response he had been expecting. "Send a priority message to Admiral Yeon at Terra Defense Command. Tell him we're coming home." The message that reached Earth triggered the most comprehensive military mobilization in human history. Admiral Yeon, commander of the home fleet, activated defense protocols that had been planned for decades but never tested. "All civilian traffic is to clear the system immediately," she announced from the command center on Luna. "Military units, report to assigned positions. This is not a drill." Director Nari of the Strategic Defense Initiative watched the preparations from her command bunker deep beneath Earth's surface. For 30 years, she had overseen the construction of humanity's ultimate defensive network. Now it would face its first real test. "How long until the Ravak arrive?" she asked her staff. 4 days, Director. Our deep space sensors confirm Admiral Kang's intelligence. It's the largest fleet movement in recorded galactic history. Director Nari activated the holographic display showing Sol System. To casual observation, it looked like any other star system, planets, asteroids, and the normal traffic of an advanced civilization, but appearances were deceiving. "Begin Phase 1 activation," she ordered. "All stealth platforms online. Defensive grid to full readiness." Across the solar system, installations that had been hidden for decades began coming online. Weapons platforms, disguised as asteroids, powered up their targeting systems. Missile batteries built into the moons of Jupiter prepared for launch. The entire system had been turned into a fortress, but a fortress that looked empty until the moment it struck. Commander Jiho coordinated the defense grid from his station on Mars. As Ravak long-range scouts approached the edge of the system, he watched their sensor sweeps with professional interest. "They're scanning for obvious defenses," he reported to Admiral Yeon. "Military installations, orbital platforms, fleet concentrations, they're not detecting the stealth grid." The Ravak scouts saw exactly what the humans wanted them to see. A heavily populated system with strong but conventional defenses. Earth's orbital stations bristled with weapons. The asteroid belt showed clear signs of mining and industrial activity. It looked like a rich target, but not an impossible one. Warlord Kresh received the scout reports aboard his flagship as the main fleet approached the system's edge. "Preliminary assessment confirms intelligence reports," his tactical officer announced. "Single inhabited world, moderate orbital defenses, civilian populations in the billions." Kresh studied the tactical display with satisfaction. "They've concentrated their ships around their homeworld. Classic defensive positioning. They're preparing for a siege rather than a mobile defense." It was exactly what human strategists had hoped he would think. "All ships, prepare for system. Entry," Kresh commanded. "We will destroy their orbital defenses first, then bombard the planet until they surrender. This will be the shortest campaign in Ravak history." The massive Ravak fleet jumped into Sol System in perfect formation, expecting to face desperate resistance from an outnumbered enemy. Instead, they found themselves in the middle of the most sophisticated trap in military history. As the first Ravak ships emerged from hyperspace, proximity alarms began screaming across their bridges. The empty space around them suddenly filled with contacts. Weapons platforms that had been invisible moments before, emerging from stealth to acquire targeting locks. "Contact! Multiple contacts!" shouted a panicked Ravak sensor operator. "They're everywhere! The asteroids are armed! The moons are armed! The entire system is a weapon!" Director Nari smiled grimly as she watched the tactical display from her command bunker. "Welcome to Sol's system," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you." The Battle of Sol began at 1432 Terran Standard Time and would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned what Deathworlders were truly capable of when fighting for their home. Warlord Kresh stared at his tactical display in growing horror as the trap revealed itself. The asteroids around his fleet were not natural debris. They were camouflaged weapons platforms, each one bristling with missile launchers and kinetic cannons. The moons of Jupiter opened like flowers, revealing massive railguns that had been built into their cores. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he roared. "Return fire on all targets." But there was nowhere to run. The humans had turned their entire star system into a killing field, with overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible escape route. Worse, the weapons were using targeting data from sensors hidden throughout the system, creating a level of coordination that made individual ship maneuvers useless. Admiral Yeon watched the battle unfold from her command ship in Earth orbit. "Phase 2. Execute," she ordered calmly. The asteroid belt erupted in coordinated fire. Thousands of missiles launched simultaneously from hidden platforms, their warheads designed specifically to penetrate Ravak shields. The humans had studied captured enemy technology for weeks, identifying the exact frequencies needed to disrupt their defensive systems. Commander Jiho coordinated the defensive grid with mechanical precision. Grid sectors 7 through 12. Concentrate fire on the enemy dreadnoughts. Sectors 13 through 18 target their command ships. Let's cut the head off this snake. The Ravak fleet found itself under attack from directions they had not known existed. Stealth ships emerged from behind planets to launch surprise attacks. Weapons platforms disguised as space debris came online to fire at point-blank range. Even the orbital stations around Earth revealed hidden armaments that had been concealed within civilian structures. Warlord Kresh's flagship, the massive dreadnought Worldbreaker, shuddered under repeated impacts. His shields were failing despite their supposedly impenetrable design. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" he demanded. His tactical officer studied the weapon signatures with professional amazement. "Sir, they're using our own shield frequencies against us. These projectiles are specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in Ravak defensive technology." It was true. The humans had captured enough Ravak equipment to reverse engineer their shield systems completely. Every missile, every kinetic round, every energy beam was calibrated to slip through defenses that had protected the Empire for centuries. But the real shock came when Admiral Kang's expeditionary fleet arrived from Vellani space. The Ravak had expected to face Earth's defenders alone. Instead, they found themselves caught between two forces, the fixed defenses of Sol system and a mobile fleet that had spent months learning how to kill Ravak ships efficiently. "Admiral Kang to all ships," came the transmission. "These are the ones who burned innocent worlds. Show them what justice looks like." The human fleet struck the Ravak formation from behind with surgical precision. They had studied every ship, class, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine the enemy possessed. Now they used that knowledge to dismantle the invasion force with clinical efficiency. Captain Minho's destroyer squadron targeted the Ravak command ships, using coordinated strikes to disrupt their communications network. Without central coordination, the massive fleet began to break apart as individual captains made desperate attempts to escape the trap. Pilot Kyung led her fighters in strafing runs against the enemy supply ships. Her squadron had trained in Earth's atmospheric storms. learning to fly through conditions that would destroy most civilized pilots. In the vacuum of space, they moved like deadly dancers, too fast for Ravak gunners to track. The battle raged for 18 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The humans had prepared for this moment since their first contact with galactic civilization. They had built their defenses assuming that someday someone would try to destroy their homeworld. By dawn on Earth, 2/3 of the Ravak fleet was debris drifting through Sol system. The surviving ships attempted to retreat, but the humans had planned for that too. Hidden platforms at the system's edge opened fire as the Ravak ships tried to reach hyperspace, destroying most of them before they could escape. Warlord Kresh found himself aboard one of only 12 ships that made it out of Sol system alive. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Ravak Empire, had been annihilated by Deathworlders who fought with a combination of technology and ferocity that defied all military logic. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "Tell them the humans cannot be defeated. Tell them we have awakened something that should have remained sleeping." The transmission that reached Ravak space carried more than military intelligence. It carried terror. For the first time in their history, the Ravak had encountered an enemy that was stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than they were. Within days, Ravak forces throughout the galaxy began withdrawing from contested territories. Local commanders, hearing reports of the Sol system disaster, abandoned their positions rather than face human retaliation. The empire that had conquered 17 species collapsed in weeks as fear spread through their ranks. The galactic community watched in amazement as human fleets appeared in system after system, not to conquer, but to establish order. The Terran. Protection accords were offered to any species willing to abide by human-drafted rules of warfare that emphasize protection of civilians and proportional response to threats. Admiral Hana, now commanding the reformed Vellani Republic Navy, worked alongside Admiral Kang to establish joint training protocols. The experience of fighting beside humans had transformed her understanding of warfare completely. "They don't fight for conquest," she explained to a gathering of freed species representatives. "They fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That makes them the most dangerous opponents possible for bullies like the Ravak." The transformation was remarkable. Species that had lived in fear for centuries began to stand up to their oppressors. The knowledge that Deathworlders would answer calls for help changed the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The formal establishment of the Combined Species Military Academy on Luna marked the beginning of a new era. Representatives from 37 different species stood in the graduation ceremony's first class, having learned human military doctrine and tactics. Admiral Kang addressed the graduating class from the podium overlooking Earth's surface. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day," he said. "We learned to fight not because we loved violence, but because we loved what violence could protect." He gestured toward the blue planet below them. "Today, you join a tradition that stretches back to the first human who picked up a stick to defend their family. We fight so that others don't have to. We become strong so that the weak can live in peace." The ceremony concluded with a joint patrol fleet departing for the Outer Rim. Human ships flew alongside vessels from a dozen different species, their crews trained in the Deathworlder way of war, but united in the cause of protecting innocent life. In the months that followed, reports reached Earth of new conflicts being resolved peacefully. Aggressive species learned that attacking their neighbors would bring swift retaliation from human-led coalition forces. The galaxy's predators discovered that there were now hunters hunting them. The final scene of the new galactic order showed a small monitoring station at the edge of known space, similar to the one where Lieutenant June had first heard Commander Hana's desperate plea. But now the operator was a joint human-Vellani team, ready to relay distress calls to the rapid response fleets. "Unknown signal incoming," reported the Vellani operator. "It's a distress call from the Triangulum sector. Her human partner, Lieutenant." "Do," smiled grimly as he activated the alert systems. Patch it through to Admiral Yon. Looks like someone else needs to learn about Deathworlders. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. Predators might hunt the weak, but something stronger hunted the predators. Humanity had found its place in the cosmic order, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The Deathworlders had come to stay, and the galaxy would never be the same.